You clicked the video, you read the title, hopefully. Today we're ranking all the tracks in Mario Kart Super Circuit, which is in my opinion the most underrated of the Mario Kart series. So let's set some ground rules. 1. I will be ordering the tracks from worst to best, and I will be ordering them in a tier list kind of fashion, since I think that will help me display my opinions a little better. 2. I won't be counting the extra cups, since those are literally copy-paste Super Mario Kart tracks. If you want to see Super Mario Kart track ranking, sorry, it's not going to be here yet. And 3, if you want to help the channel grow, like, subscribe, yada yada yada, you get the deal, okay? And with all that out of the way, let's get to ranking all the tracks in Mario Kart Super Circuit. There are no F tiers in this game. I know, crazy opinion. So we'll start off with the D tier tracks. D tier tracks are usually boring and or inoffensively bad. And there's only one D tier in this game, being Peach Circuit. I know this is the first track that you'll most likely race on, and that it's in the first cup of the game, but that doesn't give it any bonus points. This track does its job of being easy, and that's it. It does not stack up to the competition. The fact that there's only one D tier though really does mean that this game is pretty good in terms of tracks, and you should play it sometime. Pretty fun. We now move to the C tier, which has mostly decent tracks, but tends to be more of a bore than anything else. But they're decent, but they're not that interesting. It could also be a middle ground for tracks that have positives and negatives that balance each other out. And starting out in the C tier, we have Mario Circuit, which isn't all that different from Peach Circuit, but there's enough in here for me to move it up a tier. The background is more jungly, which I like, and it's a little more difficult than Peach Circuit. It has a little curve at the end with a boost panel, so if you can drive well enough, you can get a little speed boost, and there's also some random item boxes on the off-road. They don't look like they'd be useful, but it's better than nothing. The first Bowser Castle is also the most basic of the bunch, hence why it's down here in the gutters of the bottom 5. There's these hopping bits which are kind of interesting, but Super Circuit is loaded with these things, so it's not all that unique. There's also fireballs, which can get you. So there's that, but it's also in every other Bowser Castle, so not that unique. Once again, I am aware that this is a Mushroom Cup track, so I know that it's supposed to be kind of easy, but it does not give it any bonus points. If you played the game before, you were probably expecting this track to be last, but you're wrong. This track specifically has screen shake for some reason, which isn't a good thing, but it doesn't annoy me as much as it does to other people. It has these ice patches scattered around, which are a decent obstacle, and some snowmen near the end, which don't exactly do much, but can be a minor setback if you take tight lines. It's a pretty simple track, but I like snow-themed tracks a lot, so it gets a boost for me for the theming. I also want to point out these ice crystals in the background. I think they look pretty neat for a Game Boy Advance game. The Booster Course Pass improved this track immensely, as it did with many Super Circuit tracks, but for what it is, this track is fine here. So, where's the lake? It's called Boo Lake, and yet there's no lake. That's like Sunset Wilds without the sunset. Oh. The track may not be accurate to the theming the name was implying, but it's still a decent track. There are many bumps laid out throughout the track, and there's some boos holding candles which add to the spooky aesthetic. There's also a few alternate paths to take, but yeah, overall, a decent track. And to top off the C tier, we have Bowser Castle 2, another pretty decent track. I'm not wowing over anything here, but it's more difficult, has more bounce pad thingies, and is just overall better than the previous tracks. The thwomps are placed in good spots too, so it's not super easy to dodge them. It's just an overall improvement from the previous Bowser's Castle. And that's all it needed to be. Next up is B tier, where tracks start to get good. And kicking off the B tier, we have Shy Guy Beach. It's pretty simple, but it's got some quirks that help it stand out. You have these bombs, which are never in the way. There's the crabs, which are a decent obstacle. And the main attraction, the water. Okay, hear me out on this one. The water will slow you down when you drive on it, so naturally you want to not be in the water. So when you have a string of land patches like this, it's pretty fun and satisfying to bounce between them. It's simple but effective.
If you smack a baby with a yield sign, it gets sad.
Bowser Castle 4 is the most complex of the Bowser Castles, having the most turns and thwomps out of them all. It also has these Mecha Troopas, or whatever they're called. The background sprite is cool. It reminds me of Bowser's Big Blast from Mario Party for some reason. If there has to be a default good but nothing special track in this game, it's probably this one.
Go back, I want to be Monkey!
This placement might be a little biased, as I really like the Booster Course Pass version of this track a lot, but the Super Circuit version ain't no slouch either. The turns are much more difficult to drive around. The music also matches the aesthetic really well, as it is a jungle. There's also some shenanigans to be had with the shortcuts, but I don't have any mushrooms to take them in the footage. There isn't much to say about it other than what I said, as a certain track later down the line makes this initial premise much more interesting, but Riverside Park certainly deserves its props. And barely missing out of the top 10, we have Broken Pier. In a nutshell, it's a harder version of Boo Lake, except I don't have to complain that there's no lake, because there never was one to begin with. This track pretty much takes Boo Lake and injects a million steroids into it. There are more turns, more shortcuts, more bounce pads, more everything. The ghosts in this track don't hold candles anymore, but they give a nice big smile. Honestly, I would have preferred it if Nintendo remade this one instead of Boo Lake, just to flesh it out more and make it more dynamic.
Killer Fish from San Diego.
Cheep Cheep Island, a simple yet effective track. The aesthetic is very nice, being a sundown, and there are many choose-your-own-path scenarios, like here, where you can choose to do the wider turn or just go all the way down the narrow path. You could also be like me and go through the grass. It doesn't have that much of the hopping shenanigans from Shy Guy Beach, but that ain't a big deal. A good track with some very chill vibes to it. And sitting at the top of B tier and at 9th place is Luigi Circuit. You might be questioning why on Planet Earth a circuit track is in the top 10, you know, because circuit tracks are usually the beginner tracks that you use to teach the player things instead of being cool. But this one's built different. You see, it's raining! Which might not sound all that special to you, but there's only like 2 tracks in this entire series that have rain in it, being this track and Neo Bowser City. So the rain creates water puddles, which can make you spin out, and it's fun to dodge. It's also got a unique aesthetic and some very sharp turns, and I like me some hard tracks. So this gets to sit at the top of B. A tier is where things get great, and we're starting off with Yoshi Desert. To start off, there's the Yoshi Sphinx. We all love the Yoshi Sphinx. There's some sandy whirlpools which can drag you into them if you're not careful, and with some mushrooms you can skip the lake at the end, which is pretty cool. People don't usually like desert tracks, but I do, and I think this is one of the better ones to choose from. This is the best Bowser Castle in Super Circuit by a rather large margin. It has the difficulty of Bowser Castle 4 along with a completely different color palette, making it stand out more, and the thwomps are placed in clever spots. It's the best Bowser has to offer here, and it's worth being in A tier.
I'm dying.
It's a shame that they butchered this track in the Booster Course Pass, because it could have been amazing there, but Nintendo did their thing and made it kind of mid in that game, so this version remains superior. The background is very good looking, and it's fun to hop across the puddles scattered around. The Shy Guys and the Tents are a cool addition, although there's something missing from them. Overall, a good track. Great even. Remember when I said in the Riverside Park segment that a certain track later down the line makes this initial premise that much more interesting? Well, this is that track. It's the same theming, but done better. The music, more exciting and jungly. The layout, more difficult, with these bounce pads specifically made to ruin your day. There's even a volcano that shoots out magma blocks. It takes what Riverside Park did and made it better. And barely missing out on the top 3, we have Ribbon Road. I really like the aesthetic of this track. It's a land full of presents, and that makes the 4-year-old in me very happy. I also like how complex the track is. There's a bunch of boost pads on the ground, and most of them are close enough where you can hit one and start onto another right away, making a string of speed that is probably really satisfying to do. I say probably because I've never done it before. But even without doing that, this track is still a load of fun. Now we enter the S tier. These tracks are the best of the best, and the tracks that will most likely be brought up when in a conversation. Every Mario Kart game ends with a Rainbow Road, and this one, unlike the game before it, is a banger. The gimmick of this track is the bounce pads along the track, which allows for some bonkers shortcuts. You can literally bounce everywhere, and the best part is Lackey 2 won't stop you from having fun. I time traveled this back when this game was my obsession, and it was pretty fun. I got a pretty good time. I mean, look at little Toad go. He's bouncing around everywhere. It also references the ship that Bowser uses in Paper Mario 64, which is pretty neat. There's these stars that can hit you, which force you to make good lines, and this thundercloud here for some reason. Nothing about this track is bad, and that's why it takes the bronze medal. I am a cheese connoisseur. If all the cheese stores around the world ran out of stock, you would know why. It's because of me. I ate it all. So a cheese-based track fits pretty well with my agenda. Cheeseland has so much charm in it that it is impossible to not like it. The track takes place on his own planet and it's made out of cheese. There are rats that run around the place. It's just all so charming. And it's a very curvy map, so there's lots of turns that are just very satisfying to drive on. It's a very creative track and it takes second place, but there's still one that's better than it. A Planet of Cheese might be more interesting than Sky Garden, but there's just something about a beanstalk-infested sky that works for me. It sticks with its theme very well. The music emboldens the whimsy you'd feel by being in the sky, and it has some great shortcuts that make it a blast to do on time trials. This track has only gotten worse for each remake of it, mainly because of how peculiar Super Circuit's controls are. So if you ask me which track is the best track in the whole game, it's Sky Garden, no questions asked. And that, my friends, is a ranking of every track in Mario Kart Super Circuit. Whether you agree or disagree with my takes, I hope I was able to present my points well and made the video entertaining enough for you. If you enjoyed what you saw, liking the video would be appreciated. I have a Discord server if you want a place to send memes, talk about stuff, and just have a good time. And with all that said, I'll see you on the next video. Oh, I caught it. I caught it.